Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Gold, joining you on Tuesday. We are officially in the international break, the dreaded international break. Really, not too much Arsenal stuff going on, as you can expect, over the next fortnight, but looming large on the horizon, the North London derby. What a way to come back after the international break. October 1st, Emirates Stadium, bright and early on that Saturday. It is Arsenal versus Spurs. What a game that is going to be. Arsenal top of the table, Spurs still unbeaten. Something's going to give in that North London derby, and hopefully it will be that unbeaten record of Spurs. No idea how they are still unbeaten, because they haven't played that well this season. But for them, that is a good sign, isn't it? Winning when you're not playing too well. So hopefully Arsenal can put an end to that. But it's still quite a long way away. Still well over a week away. There's plenty of international football to go between now and then. Arsenal having some players involved. Not too many, but do have some players involved in this national break. Mikel Arteta will still have plenty of players to work with at London Colney over the next fortnight or so. I think a few of them are getting a few days off at the beginning of this. Mikel Arteta as well, I think, will be getting a few days off as well. Well deserved after the start of the season. Arsenal can put their feet up a little bit, have a little bit of a rest, and then come back and really get their focus turned to that Tottenham game. I wanted to start today's video and about Ethan Nwaneri, I think it's pronounced. There's a silent N, as plenty of people have told me on him. So I think it's Nwaneri. Obviously, record breaker. Just unbelievable. 15 years, 181 days old. I mean, that is mad. Absolutely mad. When was that? So that was around 1996 for me. And I can't even imagine that. Playing for Arsenal when you're 15 years old. Not even nearly 16 either. Just remarkable. Youngest player ever to play for Arsenal. Youngest player ever to play in the Premier League. Youngest player ever to play in the English top flight. Beating, I wrote this down, where is it? Sunderland's Derek Foster, who previously had that record, and that was set in 1964. So records tumbling all over the place with that little brief substitute appearance on Sunday against Brentford. And there's been lots of kind of debate, really, since that. Since that day, I saw that Danny Murphy was on TalkSport. Danny Murphy, obviously ex-Liverpool, does a lot of TalkSport stuff now. He was on TalkSport over the weekend. He was talking about it. And he said, this is what he had to say. I was quite interesting. He said, I'm not convinced it's the best move for a young player. I'm really not. He's obviously a super talent, doing well in training, impressing everybody. But surely they've got another 18, 19 or 20-year-old who's further ahead in the development who could have gone on the bench. I think Arteta is probably trying to keep a young superstar happy, but I'm not sure about it. I was thinking about these comments, and to be fair, I think Murphy's probably got a little bit of a point in a way that there was clearly other players that could well have come on in that game. I mean, Matt Smith's been in around that matchday squad for a while now. He's way ahead in terms of his development. I think he's in his 20s now, Matt Smith. Not yet played for Arsenal in the Premier League, but he's been in around a few squads towards the end of last season, the beginning of this season. Actually, not towards the end of last season. He was out on loan, wasn't he? But he's been in a few squads, obviously in the FA Cup final squad. And yet he didn't come on, and Nwaneri did. And there was a lot of times at the end of last season when Mikel had a lot of young players on the bench. Patino, Amari Hutchinson, I think Salah was on there a few times, and they never came on either. So I thought it was quite interesting. I was talking about it after the game to a few people in the press room about it, and I do feel in a way that Murphy's got a little bit of a point when he says, I think Arteta is probably trying to keep a young superstar happy. Arteta doesn't tend to do things just for the sake of it, or just for we'll throw you on, you can have a little bit of experience. I mean, look at Charlie Patino. Never got a chance in the Premier League. Yeah, it's been around it for ages. Came on, scored on his debut, played in the FA Cup, but never got a chance in the Premier League. Didn't even get taken on the tour in America. And that's the sort, Arteta doesn't really strike me as someone who will do something just, for the sake of it, or to give a young player, a chance to get some minutes. So I felt after that game on Sunday, there was probably something a little bit more to it than just throwing a 15-year-old on. It was, he's definitely will have clubs looking around him. He's only 15 at the moment, obviously, so he's not signed a contract, professional contract. He can't. He's still a schoolboy. And so I would imagine there is something behind this. And I don't blame Arsenal for that. I don't blame Arteta for that. If there's clubs sniffing around, then you've got the opportunity to play him and say, look, we're already putting you in the first team. You want to stay? Because he's clearly a massive talent. The club are really excited about him. He's always played above his age groups. I mean, he's only started his under-18s debut only a few months ago. and he's only just started playing with the under-21s this season. So it's just a remarkable curve that he's on, and so I don't think it's anything. When Murphy says he's not convinced it's the best move for a young player, I don't really buy that. I think if you're decent enough, you can cope with it. A lot of players have coped with it before, so I don't think it's going to do him any harm by any means putting him on. I don't expect him to be there week in, week out now. I imagine he'll probably go back down to 21, so when Arsenal got some of the injured players back, we won't see him on the bench again. This was just an opportunity. Arsenal had a lot of players missing. It was an opportunity to take him along. Arsenal were 3-0 up, game was over, and so why not put him on? So I don't think it's going to do him any harm. I don't really buy Murphy's comments there, but when he says that he thinks Arteta is probably trying to keep a young superstar happy, I do think he might well have a point there, and it wouldn't surprise me if this was a case of, we know there's lots of clubs sniffing around you, we know obviously everyone thinks you're a super talent, and you could still be prized away because you haven't signed a professional contract, but look what you can do if you stay here. Arteta almost admitted it himself afterwards in the press conference in Brentford, when I can't remember the exact quote, but he kind of said, I think it shows what we as a club are about when it comes to academy products, that we can help you. Because again, Arteta does have a few question marks over giving academy products chances. Yes, Saka, Smith Rowe, players like that, young players are in the squad, but they were kind of in the team before that. He hasn't given loads of young players chances who we hadn't seen before, Arteta. And that has been a little bit of a question mark that people have mentioned about him. And so this was an opportunity just to say, look, stay here, you get your chance. We will give you opportunities. You don't have to have your head turned by anyone else who's looking around it. So I think it's an interesting one, the whole Nwaneri thing, and yeah, I think Murphy in a way with those comments has got a point, but I also think I'm not really buying the fact it's going to do him any harm. Granted, Xhaka's been talking about him as well, and Xhaka's an interesting one because Xhaka's actually been coaching him. Xhaka's been doing his coaching badges at Arsenal recently, and he's been working with the under-16s, so he knows Nwaneri very, very well. He said, he looks old when I see him, but the club can be proud of a player like him. He has a big future. I'm doing my coaching licence and I've trained the under-16s. You can see a big difference with him and the other guys. He is very, very special. You have to protect him as he is very young, but if he keeps going like this and he work hard, he has a big, big future. So Xhaka can see it, and the Arsenal, you talk to anyone at Arsenal about him and they are very, very excited. He is a massive talent. He's physically very strong. I mean, when you saw him come on in that game, he didn't look out of place. You see some players, young players come in and they look a little bit out of place. They just look like immediately you think, he's going to need to bulk up if he's going to make it in the Premier League. You didn't get that impression with him at all, even though he's only 15. He's a big lad, and I'm sure he'll be able to cope physically with the demands of the Premier League. And it'll be interesting to see what we see from him in the next couple of months. Will we see him again in and around the first team? For me, I would suggest probably not. Maybe in the Europa League group stages, you might see him there towards the end of it if Arsenal have already booked their place in the latter stages of it. But I think this was an opportunity that was there because there was injuries. So it was just a case of, we'll take him along. Then as the game wore on, 3-0 up, it was just an opportunity of, okay, we can give him a little taste of it here. And that's what happened. But I mean, he's back at school now. It's Tuesday. He's back at school. It's mad. He only trains at the club twice a week because he's at school. He's still a schoolboy. And so that's how remarkable the whole thing is. And fair play to him. Congratulations. I mean, what moment for him, what moment for Arsenal. And hopefully we can all enjoy watching him play and progress over the years ahead. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree kind of with Danny Murphy and what he had to say or not at all? Let me know what you think about Mikel Arteta handing Ethan Nwaneri his debut, aged just 15 years, 181 days. Amazing. Okay, right, let me quickly talk about international breaks. Martin Odegaard, his injury is an interesting one here. Now, Stale Solbakken, the Norway manager, has been speaking over to Norwegian media about Odegaard, and this is what he's had to say. He says, we are in regular dialogue with him and Mikel Arteta and Arsenal's health sector. Nothing has been decided there. There is still hope, he said. And that is when he says there's still hope, that means there's still hope he might still head over and link up with Norway during the international break. He then continued, Martin's not doing well now. Now it's a matter of getting a final decision on whether he can be with us in both or one game. We'll certainly see him in Norway, either as a player or as a fourth coach. It means a lot to have him. So basically they're saying that whatever happens, Martin Odegaard is not going to stay at Arsenal. He is going to come over and link up with the squad. Even if he's injured, he's going to come over and basically be a coach, a cheerleader for the team. Clearly, he is very important. He's a Norway captain. But the fact he says we haven't got a final decision yet whether we can have him in both or one game. So he's not ruling out Odegaard even playing during this international break. There is a chance maybe he might play. So that's one I think Arsenal will be nervously looking on at, because Odegaard has been carrying that injury for a little while, a few weeks. They've been getting through it. And then after the training session on Saturday before the Brentford game, they just felt, you know what, we're not going to take a risk on this one. We're going to take him out of the Brentford game. So it's not the worst one. Like I said, yesterday's video, from what I'd heard, people were expecting that he would be back available for Spurs. But I think the fact that he's potentially going over to Norway and playing in this international break, that will certainly concern a few people who will be sitting back here in England with their fingers crossed waiting for news on Martin Odegaard. Saliba, he has gone to France. That's going to be an interesting one as well, because I know there was definitely discussions building up to the international break about whether it would be right for Saliba to go, because he's been carrying a bit of a problem. He hasn't really been able to train too much in the build up to that Brentford game, but he has gone. I don't blame him at all for that, because you think this is the last call up before the last squad before the World Cup, and he wants to guarantee himself a place in Didier Deschamps' squad. So in a way, it doesn't surprise me that he would absolutely want to go and almost play through the pain to try and guarantee his World Cup squad. But I'm sure that's another one that Arsenal are going to be nervously keeping an eye on. Thomas Partey's gone. He's arrived over to link up with Ghana for their games now coming up during the international break. Another one Arsenal will be nervously watching. Thought Partey was great against Brentford. Nothing majorly spectacular, but he just did everything that Thomas Partey always does very, very well, and just makes Arsenal a better team. And so Arsenal absolutely need Thomas Partey to be fit for the Spurs game after the international break. So it'll be interesting. Arsenal's coaching staff and medical staff have been talking to Ghana about Thomas Partey and trying to manage him well during, not just while he's at Ghana, but when he's back at Arsenal, and trying to manage game time, because everyone wants Thomas Partey in the best possible shape. Arsenal want him in the best possible shape, and Ghana certainly want him in the best possible shape ahead of the World Cup. And so it's a case of kind of managing him well. And Arsenal have been talking to Ghana about this next couple of weeks and how he should be managed. I would think they were certainly urging them not to play him in both games. They've got 2 matches, Ghana, one against Brazil, which you think he would want to play in. That's the kind of glamour game, and I think they've got one. I think there's. I can't remember who the other team's against. They go to Spain and they play someone, and it's not a massive game or anything like that. And I'm sure Arsenal will be looking at that, and in the discussions with the Garden medical staff, will be like, "Can you just, play him against Brazil? Fine, but then let's have him have a rest for the second game." I'm sure that's what Arsenal will be pushing for. One player who hasn't gone away during the international break, surprising this one, is Gabriel Jesus. It's like, how on earth is Gabriel Jesus not in the Brazil squad, considering how he's been playing for Arsenal? It's just mad, really, considering how I spoke about Ben White being just a crazy omission by England, but how on earth is Gabriel Jesus not called up for the Brazil squad? There are some suggestions that maybe he's not been called up because the manager TT wants to have a look at a couple other players before the World Cup, and he already knows that Jesus is going to go, so he's just kind of left him out of this one so he can have a look at another couple of players. If that's the case, then fair play. But if it's not, and if Gabriel Jesus' place at the World Cup is genuinely under a little bit of a threat, I just think it's just crazy. I mean, how good has he been? What more could he possibly do during his time at Arsenal? He was speaking about it after he spoke to ESPN after the game on Sunday, and he was asked about it. It was at ESPN Brazil, and he said, "I respect the coach's decision a lot. I respect TT, the entire staff, the entire commission. As I said, I'm Brazilian. I'll always root for the team. I also respect the other players who have a lot of quality. I'll keep doing my best and to have the opportunity again." So the way he's talking there, maybe he doesn't really think it's a case of him being left out just so that TT can have a look at a couple other players. He seems to suggest there that he's been left out purely because he's been left out. Just mind-boggling stuff if that is the case. And I mean, for Arsenal, great, he has a couple of weeks off now ahead of the Tottenham game, and you don't have to worry about him heading off and playing. I mean, they've got Ghana, obviously Thomas Partey, and then Tunisia the next couple of games for Brazil. And Arsenal, Mikel Arteta, I'm sure will be delighted not to have to worry about Gabriel Jesus picking up an injury. But on a personal level, you'd think he must be scratching his head, the striker, thinking, how on earth am I not in this squad behind some of the other players? But let's see what happens when the World Cup squad is announced. Not too long to go now. And this is the final international break before the World Cup starts in Qatar. All right, that's it from me. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Appreciate your time as always. Anything as always, that you've agreed with, disagreed with, want to let me know, just hit me up in the comments. Always enjoy going through those to see what you guys have to say. Have a very good rest of the day, and I'll speak to you very soon. Have a good one, guys.